Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. It is cold. It was this morning, it was -4 with it feels like of -22. So today we're going to talk about the boiler, how it's been doing the past couple days in this cold spell, go through some issues we had. That said, the video I started yesterday is not exactly what I expected to deliver. So we're going to jump into yesterday and how we sort of progressed through the day. So stick around to the end. I'm going to tell you about how the boiler's done in this cold spell, how the boiler normally does, and also some key things if you're in the market for a boiler. So you'll want to listen to that and stick around. Morning everyone. It is a nice cold morning. Let's see here, see if I can get my weather app pulled up. Of course it takes a couple seconds. All right, as you can see, it is 2 degrees with a feels like of -9. So we're gonna go out here and load this boiler. It is 7:54. I loaded the boiler at about 9:30 last night. So we are just under 12 hours. And I'm pretty sure it's about out of wood because the temp has dropped down to 142. As I just walked by it, I have not even opened it yet. So we will get to see together what this thing looks like. We were in the single digits last week. Maybe even slight negatives at night. Single digits today, slight negatives last night. So abnormally cold for central Illinois. Not the coldest we've ever seen, but it is colder than normal. See, we're at 142. Come on, change over. The burn chamber's at 130 or 337. So it's still got some wood in there. It just hasn't fallen to the bottom like it should have. It kind of, sometimes it gets wedged up. Make sure you guys can see well. So still got wood. Just needs to be reshuffled. So that'll get the fire going good. And maybe I don't stack this thing right, but I tend to stack it a little to the back, long ways, and I'll stack some stuff in front too. That's just what works for me. Again, we're trying to heat 2,500 square foot shop. About a 900 square foot garage and a 2,500 square foot house on a 390 gallon or 340 gallon water tank here. Central boiler E-Classic 2400. That air to it, she burns good, warms up good. We'll let her try to warm back up while we get a load of wood. So I will probably jump this video ahead of other videos. I've got some video coming of modifying my wood splitter and splitting some more wood. I ran out of wood a couple weeks ago basically, so I had to split some in the cold and in the snow, as you can see. So we'll walk over here and get another load. I will keep you turned this way so you can't see the log splitter and its modifications because it's sitting right here. But I did end up with some real good pine that's dry. It doesn't burn very long though. Some ash that was real dry that had been laying back there, but my oak was wetter than I wanted it to be. And you can see some of it's even got snow on it. So I ended up, we used way more wood than I expected. We keep in the garage at about 50 degrees because my wife and kids, they like to go out there and work out in the garage, and we got some cats that are staying out there. Not that they need the heat because they get out and play in this. They were out most of the day yesterday, even though it was near 0 degrees. They've got a little cat door they can go in and out, so they choose to be out in the cold. It don't seem to bother them. But we keep the garage about 50 degrees, so we got a pretty good heat load on that boiler. So let me get a load of wood here, and we'll load her back up. All right, that little mag base works good. You might get shaken around a little bit. Normally in the 30s, a load of softer wood like pine or elm or ash. Ash isn't soft, but just doesn't burn as long as oak. It'll usually last 12 to 14 hours. I was burning just a lot of ash a while back, and it would go 14 hours usually. In the 30s to 40s. You get down to 20s, it was more like a 12-hour load. This red oak I'm throwing in, it does pretty good. It's heavy, but a little wet. I'll end up needing some more. Gonna need another couple pieces. Alright, we'll let that burn. Grab a couple pieces. So this year I'm relearning this wood boiler now that I got the garage on it. So, my hands are like ice. So last year I burnt mostly ash and maple. It did good. I had no problem getting 12-hour, 14-hour burns, even longer. This year I would say with the temps that we're at right now around 0 and an extra 1,000 square foot roughly on the holding at 50 degrees on the garage, which the garage doors, the front aren't insulated, the man door is not insulated, the windows aren't insulated, but the walls and everything are insulated pretty well. It's a bit drafty. So I would say I could still get a good 12 to 14 hours or more on a load of ash in the, I'd say 20s to 30s, not a problem. Get down here around 0, it would maybe become a bit of a problem. The red oak definitely burns a little longer. It might be because it's wet too and just burns slower. Wedge. Turn it up. Short piece. They go in front. Alright, everybody says you can't burn wet wood in these gasifier boilers. I've been burning wet wood for a couple months and I haven't had, well, a month now, and I haven't had a bit of problem with it. So still runs just as good. The only time it causes problems if it sort of wedges up and you create an open spot down there. Alright, still got some smoke rolling out of her. Check on what her temps are coming out of the burn chamber. Give her a peek, see if she's running good. Still on low burn. 615. It won't really kick the high burn until we get to 750. So. That's when it really clears up. So when I shook it and I got cold down in there, it might not be it might have sort of clogged the downdraft part of it a little bit. This is difficult to be one-handed. Old spade. guys can't see anything. Have the door open, definitely drop some temp. See if we get up 750. All right, we're climbing, slow and steady. Get those coals around that downdraft blower or downdraft tube. It really helps it pick up. There we go, high burn. I didn't hear a big click though. Usually hear that solenoid click pretty hard. Let's check on her. Set you guys down, get my covers back on. Okay guys, I'm gonna try to walk you through here the past 2 days with the boiler. Actually, we'll go back even a little bit further than that and just talk about our setup and the weather typically around here and then what we've gone through here. I'll talk to you about a couple issues that I've struggled with this boiler and a couple ways I've been able to sort of solve it and help out with this boiler. So we're trying to heat 6,000-ish square foot. We just added this garage on a month ago to the heat load to sort of push us to that 6,000 square foot mark. 200,000 BTU heater. And our temps in Central Illinois usually range mid-20s to mid-30s in the winter. So it's been single digits the past couple days. Before that, it was in teens. The week before that, we were down to single digits again, teens. We did have like one warm day and then it turned cold again, or 2 warm days and turned cold again. So everything's been sort of soaking at this colder temp for quite a while. So again, not our normal. So this morning, -4, -22. So one thing to think about when if you're looking to size a boiler, think about not just your temperatures, but your wind. So that, especially if you have an older drafty house. If you've got wind pushing your hot air coming in, infiltrating your house and pushing hot air out, you're gonna have a harder time heating than if you've got a well-sealed house. And I can definitely see that in my house, but we'll get into that here in a minute. So yesterday, the boiler pretty well ran 140 when I started the video. I got it up to 160 was the peak, and then it pretty well ran most of the day at 150. Just struggled to, it never recovered. I would go out there every couple hours, chuck the fire up, make sure it wasn't trying to bridge over or anything, make sure I had good coals in the bottom. And trying to keep it in high burn mode is just a struggle. So every couple hours I went out there, it was kind of back down into low burn usually. So let's get into the main issue. I'll sort of go through a couple issues of bridging in the firebox, cleaning or burning wet wood, and then cleaning. So number one, bridging. That's an EPA phase 1 boiler, and I'm pretty sure the phase 2s will have the same problem. They all burn downward, and because they burn down, the air also comes in low in the firebox, burns down. So it's a big tendency, if you've got it loaded pretty full, it'll burn the wood out underneath the pile and the pile will not sink. The older boilers weren't going to have that issue because they burn upward. So as you're burning the stuff down low, you've got heat going up, the whole pile will kind of combust similarly and drop down. So that boiler is a little bit undersized maybe for my heat load and these temperatures. So it's burning real hard, trying to catch up. It's just going to keep bridging, and that's all it tried to do yesterday mostly. So if you have that scenario, maybe try to drop the heat load if you can on a little bit, let it recover. But we'll get into that here in a minute too. The other one, burning wet wood. I'm burning wet wood right now. So I've got a mix of 50-50 mostly, probably. I've got dry maple and ash mixed in with some wetter oak. So I was burning, even when we were in the 20s or 30s, I was burning just full wet oak at times, because I've kind of got hand to mouth on wood here. It's definitely been colder this year. It got colder earlier and been colder than I expected, so I kind of already ran low on wood. Had some things happen at the end of the year that I just didn't get the wood built up like I should have either, so all my fault. The boiler does just fine with wet wood though. It still burns. It's not putting out as much heat, but that boiler will burn it. I don't know about the newer ones, but that said, we'll talk about another issue too. We'll jump into boiler sizing. So right now that boiler is undersized for the temps and the heat load I am working with. So it is burning almost all the time. When you burn out and kind of bridge over, you sort of lose all the coals at the bottom. The burn chamber temp drops and it'll go out of high burn mode and into a low burn. And it will keep burning like that for a long time, but you're just not getting the heat output. So when it comes to sizing, you don't want an EPA style boiler that is really undersized, because they're going to burn out and bridge all the time. Or you don't want one that's oversized either, because they will sit there and smolder. And the EPA boilers have all these intricate air channels in the firebox usually. They have heat exchangers with turbulators and all kinds of crazy stuff that like to plug up with soot and creosote. So you want good burns, and I'm getting real good burns right now because it can't keep up. So that's all it's doing is burning. So I'm burning all the creosote out of all the nooks and crannies in that thing right now. And you want to have some of those. You don't want to have it doing that all the time, but you want to have it some. So when it comes to, if you're going to purchase an EPA boiler, you got to think about that. You got to make sure you have somebody that helps you size it correctly for your heat load. The older boilers probably didn't really care, because they just basically had an air duct or two that fed into the firebox. Everything burns up, the smoke, the creosote. When they got a heat call, you don't have all these intricate channels that you have to worry about getting heat into. So if you just got a big round cylinder, when you get a heat call and the fire burns up, it'll burn a lot of that stuff out. These boilers won't do it unless you get a pretty sustained heat call and you really ask for a pretty high burn for a while on these EPA boilers. Where am I at now? Oh yeah. That we can jump into cleaning. So when it comes to cleaning, I clean that thing about once a month. Even when we're at our normal temps, it's burning fairly hard. It runs some pretty good cycles. So it makes pretty fine ash. It all blows down into the bottom chamber on that particular boiler. It collects down there. It doesn't get up into the heat exchanger hardly ever. So I don't have to brush the heat exchanger. That one's got a pretty simple heat exchanger. The newer ones with the turbulators would be more involved. But I shovel ash about once a month. The burn chamber is usually about half full of ash. Right now with these temps, I'm just going to shovel it every 2 weeks. I just shoveled it a week ago, and I'll shovel it again here at the end of this week, because I think we're going to get some warmer temps finally and get back more to our normal. So those are the issues I've had. Those are the issues you might have or could have if you decide to go with the boiler. How am I solving some of those? Well, number one, last night when I stacked it, to sort of help prevent bridging, instead of loading it full like I normally do, I stacked it in kind of a triangle, to where I had it wide at the bottom in my coal bed, and as I worked up, I stacked over to the side and left a big gap over here. And that did well. It didn't bridge because it couldn't bridge. So that's one way you can sort of help prevent bridging. But I had to go out later at night and load it that way, and then that way when I got up in the morning, I still had some wood left. Because again, full load goes a good 12 hours. That load wasn't going to go 12 hours. So that's one thing you can do. Smaller, more frequent loads if you're running into bridging. The other thing is reduce heat load. I pulled the shop off. I cut the shop off last night so it wouldn't call for heat. The garage I pulled down to 48 degrees so it wouldn't call for as much heat. The house, we typically drop the temp at night anyway down to around 70. Everybody likes to be cooler when they sleep. And then my house is a bit drafty, so 70 in parts of the house stays nice and toasty, and the uninsulated downstairs front rooms, it's not very 70. It doesn't feel that good in those rooms. It feels more like 68. So dropping heat load helps. Still, even with that, this morning the boiler had not recovered. So I went downstairs. Another thing you can do is adjust your aquastat. So I've got an air to water exchanger in the furnace. Now maybe you have a different setup, but one thing you can do if you've got an auxiliary heat source, play with your settings. I've got an aquastat on mine. You'd have something else if you were doing radiant in your house, but play with your settings and maybe kick that auxiliary heat on a little more. So I turned the aquastat up higher to where previously my aquastat was set to where at 145, I think, my furnace would kick on. So now I've bumped it up to at least 165. So if the water temp's not over 165, the furnace is still going to kick on. So it's helping recover the boiler, number one, and it's helping heat the house, so take some of the house load off. Actually, I might have bumped it up to 170, I think, actually. So I'm going to get that boiler recovered, pick the garage back up a little bit here, maybe up to 50, and then see if the house can hold in and keep the boiler recovered. So I'll probably tweak that aquastat back down just a little bit. And that's one thing too, that will help with bridging as well. So if you get real cold like this and your boiler is struggling, as that water temp drops, have your aquastat set so that your furnace will kick on sooner, so you don't let that boiler get down so low it has a real hard time recovering and is doing these real hard burns. So if you can limit its burn time that way, that'll definitely help you out with the bridging issue. So I think that's everything I've been struggling with and all the tips I can give you for right now. So hope that helps you guys out, whether you have a boiler, whether you're fighting through issues, or whether you're thinking about getting a boiler. Hopefully this information helps you out. And if you could, give us a thumbs up. Really helps the channel out. We're trying to grow the channel. And consider subscribing. There's always content on here. So I try to post weekly. So thanks for watching. Have a blessed day. Okay, one little thing to add here at the end. I want to head off a question of, am I happy with that boiler? Do I like that boiler that I ended up with, being an EPA phase 1, and would I buy another one? And hopefully that time doesn't come any soon, but if it comes soon, but if it does, I will buy another EPA boiler. I am not scared of that thing at all. I would buy a newer one as well. Granted, it's going to be similarly sized to where I know I'm burning it pretty good to keep it clean. So the real selling point for me is I've ran that boiler with the bypass open on accident when I just forgot to close it. And it does, it'll still heat just fine, but it chews through the wood a lot faster. So I'm pretty confident those boilers are significantly more efficient than the older boilers. And in the end, that's just less wood for me to split and load, and that's a win for me. So more heat, less wood, that's the selling point for me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.